Autumn is grey and depressing enough as it is, so why not bring in a little bit of sunshine? Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife and today I am giving you a bumper list of over 50 books that have a super sunshiny yellow cover. I think these are the perfect antidote to grey and to rainy and to cold autumnal days, because there is nothing brighter than seeing that little bit of yellow coming out of your backpack or coming out of your handbag. Of course, these recs will also work out in your favour if you are taking part in Fabelin, and particularly if you are in the Order of the Golden Rune. For our team, we are going to be needing to read books that have a minimum 40% yellow cover, and these books will all absolutely fit into that category. I've broken down all of these books into their specific genres, and they are mainly the ones that I would tend to go for. So there's quite a lot of contemporary books, there are a lot of romance books, but there are also a couple of thrillers, there are a couple of non-fiction books, and there's even some cozy fantasies in there as well, because there's nothing more autumnal than a super cozy fantasy book. Contemporary. Starting out with the contemporary recs, and my first one is The Guncle by Stephen Rowley. This is following Patrick, who has just lost his best friend Sarah to breast cancer. Sarah was also coincidentally married to Patrick's brother, who is now going into rehab to get all of his demons in order. Patrick is then left in charge of Mabel and Graham. These are the two children who have been left behind. They're Patrick's niece and nephew, and he is not particularly ready to take on the guardianship role. He's a little bit of a party animal. He's trying to get his dating life back on track, but these two little kids have just absolutely opened his heart and his mind. I absolutely loved this book. There is a little section of it where they celebrate Christmas in the summertime, and it is so wonderfully cozy to read it. Promising Young Women by Caroline O'Donoghue follows Jane, who has just celebrated her 26th birthday, and she's feeling a little bit adrift in life. Her career isn't going very well. She's just recently become single, but her boss Clem has just asked her to come out for dinner with him. Jane also kind of moonlights as Jolly Politely, who is an online agony aunt, and she goes against every single piece of advice that Jolly would give one of her readers. Instead of going home and putting her feet up and watching Netflix, Jane goes out for dinner with Clem. They have an evening together, and what starts is a torrid affair between Jane and her boss. This book really gripped me in such a phenomenal way. I think Caroline is such a fantastic writer, whether she is writing contemporary books or whether she is writing her YA fantasy series, and she is definitely an author who's one to watch. The Snag List by Sophie White contains stories of that one thing that us millennials are never going to be able to do because of all of those lattes and all of those avocado toasts. The snag list is what you put together when you've just bought a house and you're putting a list together of the things that your builder needs to take care of. If there are some electrical wires that need to be covered up, for example, or if there are some things that need to be taken care of in the kitchen. This book follows Lindy, Alva and Ro, who are all in their 30s and have just moved into Monterey Valley. This is a huge new housing development in the suburbs, and their lives kind of feel like they've become a bit stagnant now. They all have their own careers and they all have their own hopes and dreams, but everything feels like it's taken a bit of a backseat. Lindy, for example, feels like everything in her life has been overshadowed by her 11-year-old son. Ro is trying for a baby and things are not really going super well. And while Alva seems like she has everything together, she's got a job, she's got a husband who loves her, she's also got a huge secret that could destroy her life if it ever comes out. Another phenomenal book to check out by Sophie White is Filter This. This is all about the world of Instagram filters and social media and how much things that are happening on screen aren't particularly reflective of what's happening in real life. This is about Ali Jones, who has one goal and one goal only, and that is to get her Instagram following finally to hit 6 figures. One day, a picture that she posts inadvertently makes her followers think that she is cradling a baby bump, and when Ali discovers just how much clout that is about to get her and how many free things that she's about to get through her front door, she decides to ride the wave. What happens then is that she meets a guy named Sam on Tinder, and he is about to blow the plan completely to smithereens. The book is also about Shelley, who is one of Ireland's biggest mummy bloggers, but things are definitely not as rosy behind closed doors as her Instagram feed might make you think that they are. Shelley and her husband actually haven't shared a bed in about 6 months, and their marriage is truly hanging on by a thread, but she has just seen how much Ali's follower count is exploding, and that's not something she's going to take lying down. The Split by Laura Kay follows Ali, who has just broken up with her girlfriend Emily and takes shelter back in Sheffield with her dad. Under her arm, Ali has snuck out with Malcolm, who is Emily's cat, in a kind of a way of getting Emily to call her and get things back on track. But when Ali figures out that that call is never going to come, she decides that she really just needs to put her whole energy into bettering herself. She and her best friend Jeremy, who have reconnected since primary school, kind of put it upon themselves to get their lives back together. They're going to get over their exes, they're going to sign up for a marathon together, and they're going to help each other through their breakup. I truly loved this story of getting over a breakup and kind of celebrating your friendships and celebrating yourself in a time where you really need to put yourself first. Also, it's got a cat in it. Another one to check out by Laura Kay is Wild Things. This is about a group of 4 friends, 3 of whom are queer and one of them is their token straight friend. They're all getting a little bit tired and run down by the humdrum of London life and decide that for an entire year they're going to head away into a small cottage in the countryside. They're going to turn this into a kind of a queer commune and just basically work together, work on the land. One of them is a kind of a big Instagram influencer, so they're going to document their life and everything that's happening on the farm here. They're kind of expecting a little bit of animosity from the community that they moved to, but I don't think any of us were prepared by just how much they were going to be welcomed. I really enjoyed this. It is a true story of friendship. It's a story of unrequited love. And I really loved the idea of a gay commune in the country with tiny little baby goats running around. Hits Different by Lizzie Huxley-Jones and Tasha Ghouri is great if you want to read a book that has a little bit of disability representation, as the main character here, Cassie, is deaf and wears a cochlear implant. This is also mirrored in the life of Tasha Ghouri, who you might know from Love Island UK. She was also born deaf and she also wears a cochlear implant. Cassie is sent with pretty much no notice whatsoever on an assignment to Ibiza. She's going to be a backing dancer for one of the world's biggest pop stars as she goes on her world tour. So she has got 2 weeks to learn all of the songs, all of the moves, and to impress the choreographer. She also brings one of her best friends from home with her, and I really loved how close their relationship was, but also this little bit of distance between her and her boyfriend is making her realize maybe Max is not the person that she wanted him to be, and he's definitely not the person for her, because she might have fallen in love with somebody that she met in the departures lounge at the airport. If you love a book that has a lot of characters for you to follow and to get into their lives a little bit better, then I would definitely recommend Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. This is set in modern day London and it follows 12 completely different women from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic situations, and it brings you the whole way through their lives. There are quite a lot of characters, so there is going to be a little bit of time where you get a little bit confused as to who's speaking and who you're following, but I would absolutely recommend this as a kind of a snapshot of what living in London is like and just how different it can be for different groups of people. Olive by Emma Gannon is a book that I read almost 10 years ago by this stage, but I vividly remember missing my stop on the bus because I was so engrossed in what was happening. This book is about Olive, who is a young woman in her 20s living in London, and her life is pretty much diverging from where all of her friends are going. They are getting married, they're buying houses, they're having kids, and that's not the life that Olive sees herself going down. It's something that is quite rampant in young millennials' life these days. There's a lot of people out there who don't see marriage as an option for them, who aren't particularly interested in parenthood. While that might be something that all of their friends are going through, and I think it's such an interesting way at looking how you can keep these friendships going when your priorities are starting to change a little bit. Kim Ji-young, born 1982 by Cho Nam-ju, was originally written in Korean, and it is set in South Korea, and something that I really love about this book is how it's told. It's told to us as if Ji-young is in her therapist's office and regaling us with her entire life story. Ji-young was the most common name given to baby girls in Korea in 1982, and you really get to see what life is like for a young woman born in Korea at that time. You see that the misogynistic struggles that she has to go through. She's also just left her job so that she can take care of her young daughter, and you really see the impact that this has had on her life. I thought that this was such an interesting story and I really enjoyed how it was told. I'm also really interested in stories that are snapshots into cultures that I've never experienced, that I didn't grow up in, that I'm never going to live in, and this was such an interesting way to see what South Korea is like. Adults by Emma Jane Unsworth is definitely one for everybody who's feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome. It's great for if you're looking at other people and thinking that you want the life that they have, but it also makes you remember that not everything is as rosy as you might think it is. From the outside, it looks like Jenny has the absolute perfect life. She's 35 years old, she's got a house that is absolutely stunning, she has a career as a high-flying editor in a magazine, and all of her friends love her, except that this isn't the case. She's actually struggling to keep going with the payments of the house since her ex-boyfriend left her, and she can feel her best friend starting to ice her out. What makes everything worse is that while she's barely keeping her head above water, her mother has arrived on her front doorstep just to help tide things over a little bit. The Husbands by Holly Gramazio is about Lauren, who is greeted one day when she comes home from work by her husband Michael. Issue with this is that Lauren is single. She lives on her own and has no idea where Michael has come from. He heads up to the attic in the evening to go and change a light bulb, and he disappears. He actually comes back replaced as a completely different man, and Lauren finds out that her attic is giving her an endless supply of husbands. It raises the question of, when your life is picture perfect, at what point do you get off the hamster wheel? I think this is such an interesting concept, and it's got that little touch of magical realism as well, if you want something that's a little bit more fantastical in your fiction reading. Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang follows June and Athena. They met each other in a creative writing class back in college, and Athena is pretty much June's only friend. Athena has had awards and accolades thrown at her for her writing, whereas June has barely met the allowance of her first book. One evening, a freak accident occurs and Athena loses her life, and June finds the manuscript to Athena's next work of art. June decides that she's going to publish this for herself and get the flowers that she believes that she deserves. The issue is that this is a book about Chinese prisoners of war during World War II. Athena was Chinese American, whereas June is white. This book is a really great look at the publishing industry, but it also raises the question of who gets to tell what stories. The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich is one that I have heard about so much, and I truly need to get this one read this year. This is about a small community where 8 people open their front door one morning to see a box lying on the footsteps. They open this and there is a piece of paper in there that tells them exactly how long it is that they are going to live for. For some people it could be a couple of months, for some people it stretches out to years and to decades. Everyone is then faced with the same choice. Do you want to know how long it is that you're going to live for? And when you figure that out, how is it that you're going to make your life as meaningful as you can? The best way to describe Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Cusotanto is complete chaos. Medi Chan accidentally kills her blind date while they are out. To help her clean everything up, she gets in touch with her 3 aunties and her mother. This was all made a little bit more complicated by the fact that the 4 of them have a wedding vendor business where they are all responsible for different parts of the wedding, and they have got a massive wedding coming up the next day. So not only are they trying to get the canapes ready, they're trying to get the decor ready, they also have to keep a dead body under wraps for the next few days so that nobody is raising any suspicions. This is the first in a series, and if you are truly enjoying it, I would definitely recommend that you go and check out the next 2 because they are incredibly funny, but they're also really heartwarming as well. If you're looking for the perfect getaway, then try The Summer Job by Lizzie Dent. This is set in the Scottish Highlands, and it's about Birdie, who is hired as the sommelier for a 4-star hotel in the Scottish Highlands. This is a slight problem because Birdie is absolutely not a sommelier. She barely knows that wine comes in red, white and rosé. She's taken over from her friend Heather, who is a trained sommelier but is spending the summer traveling around Italy because she has fallen in love with a guy and she's really going to give this her best shot. What follows is the hijinks that you would expect from Birdie just trying to get along, but also some absolutely stunning descriptions of the Scottish Highlands, of Loch Lomond, and a really sweet romance between Birdie and one of the hotel's porters. Romance. The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren is a great one to read if you want to escape to a tropical paradise this autumn. Olive's sister Amy has just married Ethan's brother Dane, and Olive and Ethan are the only 2 people who were at the wedding reception who haven't gotten food poisoning as a result of eating from the buffet. Olive and Ethan are tasked with going on their siblings' honeymoon for them because everything cannot be refunded and nothing can be cancelled. It's just that Olive and Ethan have hated each other from the moment they set eyes on one another. What follows is a whole bunch of hijinks because they have to keep up appearances, so the hotel isn't getting onto what's going on here, but also because all of the prospective employers have just coincidentally turned up at the same resort. This book is really steamy, it's really enjoyable, and it's got that little tropical island paradise that you might be looking for as the temperatures start to plummet. Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert is the second book of the Brown Sister trilogy, but I would still say that you can read this as a standalone book. This is about Danny Brown, who is a PhD candidate, and Zaf, who's working in security at the university. One day there is a fire alarm, and Danny is escorted out of the building by Zaf. And when I say escorted out, I mean he fireman lifts her out. Video evidence of Zaf carrying Danny out of the building goes viral, and now everyone is obsessed with Dr. Rugby. Danny and Zaf decide to fake date each other and to ride this wave because Zaf needs a little bit of extra help to boost the popularity of his rugby team, and Danny just wants to get laid. I absolutely love these two together. They're one of my favourite romance couples, and I truly think these are two people you need to meet. My favourite Half Night Stand by Christina Lauren follows Millie, who has always been seen as one of the guys by her friendship group, and she's kind of disappointed that this is how her best friend Reed has seen her. Millie and Reed secretly have one of the best nights in bed that they've ever had, but they both decide that it's just better if they stay friends. Millie and Reed, who are both part of the same fellowship group at university, are invited to a black tie gala event, and they and their friends have kind of come up with the idea that they're going to use online dating to find somebody to bring with them to this gala. Millie decides to make a profile called Catherine, and she is going to strike up a conversation with Reed and have him be her date. It's just that she's never told anybody that Catherine is really her. The Love Wager by Lynn Painter follows Jack and Hallie. Hallie has decided that she's going to get her life together and goes back on the dating app so that she can find an actual true relationship. One of the first people that comes up on her feed is Jack, the guy whose bedroom she has just walked out of. Jack and Hallie decide that they're going to be each other's wingmen on their dates. They're going to set each other up, and they're actually going to set up the dates at the same time so that if things go wrong, they can meet for tacos after each other's dates and have a kind of a debrief as to what happened. What you can imagine is that as they are dissecting what's been happening on these dates, they're actually starting to get a little bit closer with one another. Jack invites Hallie with him to a wedding one weekend, and they decide that all bets are off. They're going to fake date each other, they're going to be each other's plus ones, and this is when things really start to heat up. If you're a fan of the movie The Lake House, which stars Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock, go and check out The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is about Clementine, who lost her aunt about a year ago and is finally starting to pick up the pieces. She comes home one evening and discovers a man standing in her kitchen. It's a little bit concerning, but she realizes quite quickly that this man is actually from 7 years ago. 7 years in the past, this was his apartment, and now he has nowhere else to go. Clem starts seeing him in other places in her real life, but it's only when they are in the apartment together that he can recognize who she truly is. The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren is about Jess, who is a single mother and looking to get back on the dating scene. She's just heard about Genetic Ally, which is a dating app that will match you up with a partner based on how compatible your DNA is. She signs up, not really expecting anything to come from it, but she is a platinum match with River. This means that they have an over 95% compatibility rating, and River is one of the developers of the app. He's actually the guy who brought everything together in the first place. The whole team behind the app think that this could not be a better advertisement for what everything is going to be like. So River and Jez are kind of brought together to talk about how great the app is, to spend time together, to date one another, and to actually put the app through its paces. While River and Jess are spending a bit more time together, they actually start to believe that maybe the app was onto something. Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey is the second in a series, but this definitely works perfectly as a standalone if you haven't read the other yet. This is about Rosie and Dominic, who've been together for about 10 years, and textbook, they have the perfect relationship. It's just that things aren't going so well for them right now, and Rosie is lucky if she even gets a wave hello from Dominic when he comes through the door after work. She decides that in order to save their failing marriage, they are going to do something that they've never tried before: marriage boot camp. She's not really expecting Dominic to give it a try, but she's truly blown away by how on board he is with trying out what love language suits him, with doing little things for her when he's out doing grocery shopping. But once they really start to get their relationship back on track, Dominic unfurls a secret which might blow everything back up again. This book is incredibly spicy, like you would come to expect from any Tessa Bailey book. So if that's what you're looking for this season, this is definitely the one to put on your TBR. Another super spicy recommendation is The Roommate by Rosie Dannon. This is about Josh and Clara. Clara has moved from her New England, waspy, high society upbringing to Los Angeles, where she's going to move in with one of her best friends who she's had a crush on for years. What she's not expecting is that he is about to go on tour with his band and his room has actually been sublet to Josh. Clara discovers quite soon that Josh is in the adult entertainment. This is not the kind of person that she had ever thought that she would be living with before, but he really opens her mind up to new sexual experiences, to new understandings of the world. As Clara and Josh get to know each other a little bit better and spend a little bit more time together, they both come to very much the same realization. They both understand that women need better sex, and there is one way that they can decide how that's going to happen. Twice Shy by Sarah Hogle is about Maybelle, who's always kind of had her head in the clouds and isn't particularly enamored by what real life has had to offer her up to now. She inherits a house from her great aunt Violet, so she heads off to the Smoky Mountains to basically restart. It's just that when she gets there, she realizes she's not the only inheritor of this house. It is also going to go to Wesley, who is the groundskeeper, and he has got completely different ideas as to how they are going to restore this ramshackled and run-down house into a beautifully livable home. This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune follows Lucy, who escapes to Prince Edward Island for a summer getaway every single year. One year, she bumps into Felix, with whom she has incredible chemistry, and they share an explosive night together. What Lucy doesn't know is that Felix is her best friend Bridget's younger brother, and there is an entire long list of why she and Felix are absolutely danger for one another. That's not particularly going to stop them, though. The Bodyguard by Catherine Center follows Hannah, who might look like a cinnamon roll, but she truly could kill you. She is hired as a bodyguard for Jack, who is a Hollywood actor, but he has got a stalker who is kind of making life a little bit difficult for him. Jack's mother, who is back in Texas, has fallen ill, and Jack wants to go back and make sure that everything is okay. But he doesn't want her to know about the stalker thing, and he definitely doesn't want her to know that it's so important that he has a bodyguard with him. So he asks Hannah, when she's coming along with him, not to be his bodyguard while she's there, but to pose as his girlfriend. As you can imagine, this fake dating situation doesn't particularly stay fake for very long. What I love about this book is that it is a gender flip of the usual male bodyguard protecting a female celebrity, and I am so interested in stories where strong women are one of the central characters. Historical fiction. Whatever Happened to Birdie Troy by Rachel English is about Stacey, who is kind of going through a rut right now. Her podcast, Whatever Happened To, hasn't exactly been exploding recently, but she's had an idea that might bring it into a little bit of notoriety. She's going to take a look at what happened to Birdie Troy. Birdie was the front woman of the Diamonds, a massive band who had one hit single, appeared on Top of the Pops one night, and then were never seen again. She's pretty sure that Birdie is just living under the radar and doesn't particularly want to have all of the fame that she was supposed to have, except that things are a little bit more complicated than she was ever expecting. The Book Thief by Markus Zusak is set in Germany in 1942, and it's narrated by Death, who, as you can imagine, is having a bit of a busy time at the moment. It also follows Liesel, who is 10 years old and has been fostered by the Huberman family. Her journey to visit them for the first time, her journey to being taken in by them, a kind of tumultuous relationship with her foster mother, and the absolutely beautiful relationship that she has with her foster father. It's also a really great look at what life was like in Nazi Germany at the time, and it's such an eye-opening read for so many people. It will also rip your heart straight out of your chest and kick it across the room. Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore is about Annabelle, who is destitute but has been sponsored to be part of the first ever women's class to be taken in at the University of Oxford. While she's here to keep her studies going, she has been tasked with getting people on board with the idea of the suffragette movement. She has got a target in eye, who is Sebastian, a local duke, but she's not particularly expecting how much she was going to fall for him the second that she sets eyes on him. It does make her task just a little bit more difficult. Taylor Jenkins Reid, Carrie Soto is back is definitely one for the tennis fans out there. By the time that Carrie Soto retired, she was the World Grand Slam champion, and her record has never been matched up until now. It is the mid-90s, and Emma Chen is about to overtake Carrie's world record. She is not going to take this lying down, so Carrie has decided to come back for one more season to defend her honour. Non-fiction. I Don't Need Therapy and Other Lies I've Told Myself by Toni Lodge was written when Toni decided that she was telling herself a little bit more of a white lie than she should have been. She was kind of making it out that she was doing okay, that she wasn't struggling with everything, and she kind of put pen to paper as a way of making herself realise things are not going as you had expected them to. This is truly such a hug in a book, but it also does come with quite a big warning for grief and for bereavement, as Toni talks quite a lot in this book about losing her mother to cancer when she was quite young, and how this loss has impacted her as a person, as an adult. If you or anybody else that you know has moved country and now lives in a completely different culture, then I definitely recommend You Deserve Good Gelato by Casey Rose. Casey moved from the US to Italy a couple of years ago, and this story is truly about what it's like living in a different culture, living in a different language, having to do things that are so mundane and straightforward to you in your home culture, such as going to the doctor, such as going to the supermarket, and how they become about 100 times more difficult when you are in a different country and when you are speaking a different language. As an immigrant myself, this was such an eye-opening read, and it is probably one of the best books that I've read so far this year. Fans of iCarly and that kind of Nickelodeon era should definitely pick up I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Jeanette was a star of the show, and throughout this book, you learn just what kind of a relationship she had with her mother. It's not the happy-go-lucky sunshine relationship that a lot of us are quite lucky to have with their mothers. Instead, Jeanette was physically, emotionally, financially, and sexually abused by her mother, and you are really brought through the nitty-gritty of that, what it was like for her growing up, and how much she has had to unpack that as an adult. Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb is a non-fiction book about Lori's struggles as a therapist. She is always seen as somebody who's got her life together, except that one day something happens to bring her world crashing down. She goes and signs up for her own therapy sessions, but what she is finding is that the questions that her clients are going to bring to her are now the exact things that she has to think deeper about for herself, and these are the exact things that she is now asking her own therapist with help for her own life. Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton is truly a love letter to love. It's not just about romantic relationships, it's also about familial relationships, platonic relationships, the important relationships that you can have in your life, in your 20s, and how much they can shape you as a person. You will notice that there are a couple of sticky notes that are hanging out of this book, and that is because not only is it a memoir, but there are also some really fantastic recipes in here. There's a recipe for a mac and cheese pizza. There is a recipe for like an ice cream and apple tart that I am dying to try still to this day. And it feels like such a comforting book to read at this time of year, because when everything gets a little bit darker, who's going to help get you through except for your friends? Anybody who's familiar with the UK comedy scene will know Joe Lycett, and I would implore them to go and pick up Parsnips Buttered. If you know what Joe's kind of shtick is, then you'll be familiar with the emails that he can send out to lawyers or to parking councils, and this is kind of a collection of the emails that he will send out, kind of taking the piss out of everything, but also his ideas on the world and how things should be run. I loved this book. Joe's comedy style is definitely something for me, and this book had me laughing out loud so many times. Not only does he bring you through his writing process of his shows, but he also gives you a kind of an insight as to how his mind works. And when I tell you that is quite the special place to be, you best believe I'm not lying. Thriller. Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent is about Sally Diamond, who has always been kind of living out on the periphery. She always has a little bit of trouble understanding things and getting social clues, so when her father tells her, as he died, he wants to be put out with the rubbish, that is exactly what she does the morning that she discovers his body. This brings a whole host of media notoriety on Sally's life, and it transpires that Sally had a completely different start in life than what she thought that she had, and she has had a completely different upbringing than she was supposed to have. I would describe this book as if Room by Emma Donoghue and Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman had a baby. So if those are two books that you have enjoyed, absolutely go and check this out. A Keeper by Graham Norton is about Elizabeth, who is coming back to Ireland following the death of her mother. Her mother's house needs to be cleared out and cleaned up so that it can be ready for sale. And while Elizabeth is going through everything, she finds a group of letters written to Elizabeth's father. She has never met this man in her entire life, and it brings a whole different idea into light of what Elizabeth's start in life was and what her father truly was, and the whole reason she's never met him in the first place. The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley follows a group of 30-somethings who, when they first met in university, all started a tradition that they were going to ring in the new year together. This year is no different, and on the 30th of December, they all meet up in a huge manor house in the Scottish Highlands. 2 days later, on New Year's Day, one of the group of friends is found dead, and another in the group is the one that did it. You then have to decide who it was that did it with the little clues that you are given throughout the book. Children's and YA. Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman is, in my opinion, the absolute best book of the entire series. This follows Nick and Charlie, who have been in a relationship for a couple of years, and they are now going on a school trip to Paris. They're going to bring their entire friendship group with them, and they are also going to see the sights of the city, learn a little bit more French, and they're going to get a little bit closer to one another. One of my favourite side plots of this entire book, though, is the budding romance that is happening between two teachers from the different schools that are going there, and how much they are breaking down each other's boundaries. I absolutely love this entire series, but this one is just a little bit extra special to me. Following on from that, Nick and Charlie, also by Alice Oseman, takes place after a couple of years. Nick is heading off to university, but Charlie is going to be left behind to start sixth form. But it doesn't matter the distance because they are the ultimate couple and there is nothing that could shake them up. Right? Bill's New Frock by Anne Finn is about Bill, who wakes up one morning and his mother puts him in a dress and sends him off to school. Bill just wants to run around, play football, get dirty in the mud with his friends, but now he has to worry about keeping his dress clean, and everybody is treating him differently to how he did yesterday. This book is really going to open a couple of discussions up with children about gender norms and how people of different genders are treated. This is one that I absolutely loved when I was a child. I reread it a couple of years ago and it still had that exact same magic I was looking for. Destination Anywhere by Sarah Barnard follows Peyton, who has spent the last 5 years of secondary school completely alone. She knows, however, that when she starts sixth form, everything is going to turn on its head. And she's pretty happy with how her first day has gone. She has found a great group of friends. She's found a guy that she is really interested in, but after a while, things start to crumble. She knows that the only way she's going to get back on track is to basically head off into the wilderness. So, armed with her parents' credit card, Peyton turns up at the airport and just books a plane. It Only Happens in the Movies by Holly Bourne follows Audrey, who is completely over romance. Her own breakup has just happened and her parents' tumultuous divorce is really hitting fever pitch at the moment. She's working in the local cinema and it's kind of hard for her to keep so upbeat when all she wants to do is lie on her bed and cry. However, a new hire called Harry comes in and really starts to show her the joy that can be in life again. Is he about to do a rom-com montage with her? The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness is set in a world with superheroes, but it mainly focuses on the normal human day-to-day people, such as Mikey, who just wants to get through high school, ask out his best friend Hannah, and get to college. I thought that this was such an entertaining way of looking at superhero stories right from the perspective of people who are just going by their day-to-day lives. Date Me Bryson Keller by Kevin Van Wy is about Bryson Keller, who is approached every single Monday morning by somebody different, and the first person to say to him, "Date me, Bryson Keller," is going to be dated by him for the entire week. Kai, who has been in the closet for a couple of years, decides that he's going to shake this idea up a little bit, and he's going to be the first guy to ever approach Bryson and ask him the important question. Everything is fine because while Kai is coming to terms with his sexuality and becoming a little bit more comfortable with explaining it to people, Bryson's straight, right? Cosy Fantasy. Spellbound by Gretchen Rue is about Phoebe, who is coming to terms with being a witch and learning her craft, while also renovating the Victorian house that she inherited from her great aunt Eudora, and also running a magical tea shop. One morning, Phoebe wakes up with a dead body on her doorstep, and all of the fingers are being pointed at her. Naturally, she has no idea how this body came to be, and she was in no way involved in it, but she really needs to clear her name. So she hires Rich, one of her childhood friends who is now a high-powered lawyer, to clear her name, but while he's solving the case, she is solving all of these feelings that she's got for him. A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon by Sarah Hawley follows Mariel, who has accidentally summoned Ozrath in a summoning spell that has gone wrong. It turns out that Ozrath is kind of soul-bound to her, and he cannot leave until they have completed a bunch of missions. It's just that Mariel is really starting to warm to having Ozrath around the house, and she doesn't particularly want him to go anywhere. Those are a whole host of books with yellow covers that I think will brighten up any grey and gloomy autumn day for you. Have you got a favourite book on your shelf that has a yellow cover, or have you got one that you are looking forward to this season? If you would love to leave me a comment but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then just leave me the yellow hearts emoji. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.